So, trailer for the second Dark Souls 3 DLC, which is going to be called The Ringed City and is coming on 28th March, was released today. Well, I guess it's actually really intriguing. But truth to speak, I don't like speculating too much without basis, although my lore videos sometimes feature some wild speculations, so I'd rather just briefly note some especially peculiar and intriguing things to me that we see in the trailer. So, the first peculiar thing I'd like to mention is the symbol we may see on top of this chapel, or its rather tower, which is obviously reminiscent of the Sword of Avowal. A ceremonial Sword of Lundor, used in rite of wedlock that is said to presage a true Hollow Lord, and that's really intriguing along with the fact that the new location is called Ringed City, and appears to be located somewhere among the ruins surrounding the kiln of the First Flame, which we see below the dark sign Eclipse Sun. That reminds us of the dark sign ring that brands the undead. And if I'm not mistaken, initially the name of the original Dark Souls game was first planned to be Dark Ring after FromSoft couldn't get a trademark on Dark Lord title. Thus the Ringed City itself or its inhabitants would likely have something to do with the undead, and thus human, dark sign. And what makes it even more interesting is that we may recall the words of the painter, who reveals us that in order to paint a new world, she also needs a pigment, the dark soul of man. And Uncle Gale, who can't be killed in-game pretty much as other crucial characters as the painter and firekeeper, is supposed to bring it to her. So maybe the two DLCs will be connected exactly by this dark soul of man, and possibly we're going to find it and bring it to the painter. Actually, there's some peculiar looking dark stuff shown in the trailer, but we'll discuss that scene a little later in the video. However, I guess we can't really tell for sure yet whether is it related to that pigment or not, and, returning to the scene where we see that peculiar Lundor-related symbol, in it we may also see some creature that is likely an enemy. That appears to be this guy who's shown in more detail later in trailer. And another interesting thing we may see in the trailer is this scene where we see some Lothric knight armor and possibly a corpse inside, covered in some roots, and the player character with Lothric knight Great Chill using some peculiar banner, and the effect that appears similar to casting a miracle. Thus the banner might actually be a medium used to cast miracles. However, it also might be possible that it's a key object being used to unlock something. What's interesting about it is that the banner actually features the symbol that we may see on the Winged Knight, followers of the Heavenly Daughter Gertrude, or Gertrude the Daughter of Angels, who have sworn themselves to the angels and fought against the Lothric Knights. Thus it's possible that the new DLC might shed more light on their story. However, we may also find this banner, only red one, around Lothric along with other types of Lothric banners, and thus it's likely one of the symbols of Lothric Kingdom, rather than symbol related to angelic faith. Also we may see some creature, apparently a boss enemy, that looks somewhat similar to a dragon, which might make us wonder whether could that be the lost child of dragons Ocelot. Although, as we know, at some point Ocelot was planned to be an actual baby held during the boss fight by Os-Eros, or rather Osroas, as we discussed in one of my etymology videos. However, what is also extremely intriguing, is that this creature's head looks quite similar to a bat's head actually. And in the Dark Souls cut content, there was an item called the Soul of Great Bat, that belonged to a creature sealed away deep beneath the earth. So might this boss actually be that Great Bat? Also we may note the Pilgrim Butterfly, which is slightly different from those we've seen before, so maybe we'll finally get more info on them too? But, I guess the most intriguing is this scene with a sleeping woman, as I guess we can see her breathe, who holds something which appears to be an egg, with some darkness inside it, and we may also note something dark coming out from her eyes. And of course this darkness is quite peculiar, as in Dark Souls it's usually associated with humanity and abyss. However, by the size of this woman, I guess we may assume that she's related to the gods, and naturally it's really intriguing as it makes us wonder whether may she be somehow related to Queen of Lothric, who disappeared after giving birth to her youngest child, that appears to be Ocelot, and thus related to quite a few characters that are related to Queen in one way or another. As we discussed in old Lore Behind Rosaria video, for example, Gertrude or Rosaria. And it's also really interesting whether could this egg be somehow related to dragons, or maybe child of dragons, or possibly even some dragon crossbreed creatures? But, since it contains some darkness inside, I guess it may be something even more exciting than just a dragon egg, or even a serpent egg, which probably may be an option too. However, this scene is also peculiar because it somehow feels like our character is going to regret touching this egg in one way or another. Possibly it may simply trigger the boss fight, but I also think that it might actually be an entrance to the DLC. Pretty much like we touched the rotten scrap of Ari Animal's painting. Basically, the game kinda teaches us not to touch some suspicious stuff, and thus it's possible that the woman's going to simply appear somewhere after the DLC release. But, truth to speak, I guess that for now there's little point in listing all the exciting possibilities. And hopefully, in the end the new DLC will turn out to be something unexpected and even more exciting. Anyway, these were just some first impressions from the trailer. Hopefully it wasn't totally boring. Thanks for watching, though. Truth to speak, I myself would prefer watching some of my real lore and etymology videos, lol. So, maybe you'd like to check out some of them, or maybe some of historical or manga characters cosplay videos on my channel. Also, you can check out the video description for a link to the etymology videos table of contents, if you're interested in this topic, as it's meant to make it easy to find the discussion of the necessary names.